I'm going to be talking to you about something that is seen throughout the day in many, many places. You see them on TV, see them in magazines, see them in newspaper, big billboards on the highway, and all over the internet. I'm talking about advertising. And now, if you're like me, you find them extremely annoying sometimes, and you just want them to go away. But there is a more serious issue to it. My proposition is that advertising techniques used today do more harm than good to our society. My first secondary claim is that food and drink advertisements sell and show material items that are unhealthy and harmful to people. A research review by the Institute of Medicine of the National Academies concluded that children's exposure to television advertising for non-nutrient food products is a significant risk factor contributing to childhood obesity. Now, in response to this, food and beverage industry responded with a self-regulatory children's food and beverage advertising initiative. The initiative aimed to significantly improve the nutritional quality of food and beverage products advertised to children. But a more recent study by Children Now, released at a national conference in Washington, D.C., reveals the failure of the food and beverage industry's Better For You initiative to achieve promised improvements in the nutritional quality of foods advertised. So despite a major effort at self-regulation, nearly 3 out of 4 of foods advertised on television to children are for products in the poorest nutritional category. The growth in new food products targeted to kids has been huge, from 52 introduced in 1994 to nearly 500 introduced last year. Ellen A. Wartella, psychology professor at University of California, Riverside, said overwhelmingly those foods are high-calorie, low-nutrient foods and not the kind of foods that are recommended for children to eat. The second point, my claim, is that the alcohol advertisements are displayed without any of the consequences. And the example that comes to my mind is the Dos Equis commercials with the most interesting man alive. He talks about how great he is and all the stuff he does. And so that kind of gives you the idea that, you can be an interesting man by drinking the alcohol, but it doesn't tell you the consequences that can go along with that. And these advertisements are often showed on television shows that obviously teens watch and see these commercials throughout the program that they watch. My third point to the claim is that children are easily influenced by any ad. The American Psychological Association report points out that children under the age of 8 can't grasp the notion the commercials have a purpose other than entertainment, and they completely believe what they see and hear. An FTC investigation found that violent movies, music, and video games have been intentionally marketed to children and adolescents. Although movie theaters have agreed not to show trailers for R-rated movies before G-rated movies in response to the release of the report, children continue to see these advertising for violent media and other venues. M-rated video games are still advertised in movie theaters, magazines, and publications with high use readership. So these children could be under the influence that the game is okay for them. My second claim is to the opponents that argue that advertisers do not criticize or mock people to take them to buy the product. They don't say on the advertisement, "We force you to buy our product." But the advertisers are saying that people should buy their product and need to buy their product. If not, that it's a negative thing for them not to do. Which leads me to my third point, which is the techniques advertisers use today makes impressionable people feel inferior. A study from the Journal of Consumer Research, where the authors observed the reactions of young women after they looked at a series of images and advertisements, showed that when asked how satisfied with their body they are, the women answered with negative opinions of themselves after viewing a beauty-enhancing ad. And which, my first point is the idea of beauty displayed as almost unattainable. And by unattainable, I mean these beauty ads are usually fake. In the magazine The Sun, which is a news magazine that updates regularly on fashion, it found that 20% of cosmetic ads admitted that pictures were artificially enhanced. A further 44% appeared to have doctored images but did not own up to it. My last point to my third claim is that you are not part of the in crowd unless you have the more expensive product. The example that came to my mind were the Mac versus PC ads, where the Mac guy is displayed as, you know, the cool laid-back guy that, you know, has all these good things about him, and then the PC guy is usually has negative stuff happening to him. You know, you don't want to be that guy, and so that influences you to be the Mac person. And then the other one is the Old Spice commercials, where, you know, look at me, look at you, man, now look at me. Sadly, he is not me. That's telling you that, you know, your man should basically be just like this guy and nothing else. So in conclusion, advertisements sell you stuff that, you know, they give you variety, they explain some stuff, but the serious issue is that advertisement techniques used today do more harm than good to our society. Thank you.
All right, well, I think the proposition may be a little broad for this subject or the situation, circumstance that you're dealing with, especially when you give an on-balance statement, because we don't really get any comparison of to what advantages there might be. I think you want to stick to just the argument that there are some particular kinds of harms. But you don't really outline what the harms are. You outline what some of the techniques are. And I'm not sure that the controversy is on the techniques, but what their consequences would be. I think the strongest argument that you've got is that there might be advertising that goes to people who should be excluded from this kind of advertising. For instance, kids being exposed to material that's not appropriate to them, whether they be video games or booze or any other kind of thing. I think that there's a little bit clearer argument on that. The notion that in that whole last section that these techniques might make us feel bad about ourselves or they might play on our fears, and I'm going, yeah, and what's the harm of that? If it sells the product, as long as the product's not harmful, I'm not exactly sure what the consequence is. Now, if you tell me that the country exists and we all have low self-esteem and so we're not achieving as much as a consequence, okay, there's a particular harm. Or, for instance, if all those women feel bad about themselves after viewing the beauty product and as a consequence they spend money that they don't need to spend on cosmetic surgery, or they develop eating disorders or something like that, okay, then there's a consequence that we can look at. But otherwise, you're just talking about what the techniques do and what emotions they play on, and I don't really think that there's much of an inference there. That simply sounds like a description of some basic psychological techniques used to sell products. So you need to show us what the harm of those techniques is. I did think that you needed to have a little bit more information, especially on the point about alcohol advertising. All you have is the hypothetical about the most interesting man in the world, and I didn't get any other information on that particular point. Structurally, it was confusing because I heard 2 number 2 points and 2 number 3 points. It probably means that first point was subdivided into several secondary claims, and then the other points are being presented, but it did not come across very clearly, and as a consequence, that was a little bit confusing. All right, thank you.